It's Wisdom Wednesday, where you drive the agenda. This is the segment of the Sales Gravy podcast where listeners like you bring Jeb their biggest questions and he gives his best answers. These answers come straight from the trenches because just like you, Jeb is out there prospecting, selling, closing deals, and leading his sales team every single day. Now, before we get started, some fantastic news. The date and location for the next Outbound conference will be announced very soon, and Outbound is the biggest, baddest conference in sales. If you haven't been, this is the one to add to your bucket list. Tickets are extremely limited, and it sells out every single time. Right now, you can go get on the waiting list and be the first in line for early bird ticket discounts at outboundconference.com. Again, that's outboundconference.com. All right, let's take the next caller, and next up on the show is Jacob Kimrey.
Long time listener, first time caller. Not my favorite quote from the book, but I recently took over a team in Atlanta. So the traffic, and you mentioned the parking lot.
Yeah.
But as a sales manager, I always have calls I can return no matter how long I'm stuck in traffic. For my sales team, what's the best utilization in your opinion of utilizing that time behind the windshield stuck in Atlanta traffic?
Oh, it's a great question. Oh, love that question. Okay, so first of all, Jacob, as a sales leader with your sales team, number one thing you want to do is sit down with every one of your sales reps, and you need to, if you haven't already done this, map their territory and drop it into quadrants. So on Monday, this is where you are. On Tuesday, this is where you are. On Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. And if you're in some other area than where you're supposed to be on Monday, there needs to be a really good reason for it. Like, we need to understand why you would be crossing over to your Friday territory when you should be in your Monday territory, because the natural inclination for the salesperson is going to be driving all over the place, because salespeople have a hard time separating driving from actually accomplishing things. And what I explained to field salespeople from the get-go is that driving is not an accomplishment. So we need to maximize our sales day. The other thing you want to make sure you're focused on, Jacob, is that when they're in the field, especially in today's world where we're really getting a lot of pull from in-person knocks, is that if they're going out and they've got appointments, or they're going out canvassing, that all of that is tight. If they got appointments, then they are in the CRM planning in advance their in-person knocks, and that you teach them the T-calling technique, which is when you walk through a door, look to your left, look to your right, look behind you, so that you're just maximizing the time in the field rather than spending time in traffic. Now, if I'm having a conversation with your salesperson and they're in Atlanta, you're going to be sitting on 285. It is a parking lot at times. And you're in your car. Number one thing for me is automobile university. So if you're in your car and you're staring at a windshield, what needs to be playing through the speakers of that automobile is something that's good for you. We created audio courses, for example, on Sales Gravy University, and we've got a lot more that are coming that way so that people can just push a button and they can just listen while they're in their car. Sales Gravy podcast. We podcast 3 days a week. This question will probably end up being on the podcast, so you can play it for your salespeople. But you've got something that you can listen to that's good for you, and there's a lot more out there. So in your car, when you're driving, no news, no music, listen to something good for you. Automobile University is powerful, and it will help them get better. That would be my number one focus for them. Now, earlier today, I did a call with a young rep out of Canada who is out in the field all day long. And we were talking about how does he build prospecting blocks into his day? It's a good question, because he starts at 7:30 in the morning. He's going till about 6 o'clock at night because he's selling to contractors, standing on roofs. He's working through a lot of field work. He's asking, how in the world do I build in a call block? Well, there's a couple of options for him. One, there are dialers in apps that you can drop a bunch of phone numbers in that'll allow you to dial while you're in your car, so you're not doing things that are dangerous. If you can't do that, one of the things you can do is you can set up in a Google Doc, you can put them in your notes, but you can set it up so you just hit the number and it'll dial for you. So one of the things that I would suggest is that if there's a possibility that they can do this and be safe at the same time, there's no reason in the world why they can't do some prospecting calls or call customers or have conversations that are follow-up conversations while they're staring at a windshield, if they get those things planned in advance and they do it safely. With today's voice tools that you can use, you can always just talk to your phone. There's all kinds of ways that you can do this. You can work this out in a way that makes it safe, and they're running this over hands-free. So they're maximizing the time that they're in their car, staring at a windshield. So I would start with, what are you listening to? And this is as a leader, Jacob, I learned Automobile University from one of my first leaders who set me down and explained this to me, and I never looked back. It was one of the most important lessons. I wouldn't have thought about that if I hadn't been listening to him explain it to me. You're going to have to do the same thing. Spend some time with your people and explain to them about why investing in themselves, always putting something in their mind, like keeping their skills strong, all of that matters to a salesperson because we're in skill positions. We're elite athletes of the business world. When we're constantly investing in ourselves, we get better. We have better conversations. We ask better questions. We think differently. And that can be an audiobook, podcast, could be a lesson on Sales Gravy University, any of those things. I would focus on helping them be as productive as possible in their car, and then coach them and teach them and work through how they can do that. So before I wrap up, what I would say to you, Jacob, is this might actually be a really good conversation for maybe the next 2 or 3 sales meetings that you have, where you bring your people together, like get them to come up with those answers.
No, I'll just say I appreciate it. And like after my move to Atlanta, I've definitely, been able to listen to more of your podcasts. So it's definitely, good use for me and my team. And just kind of wanted your feedback. So certainly appreciate it.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you.
When you're leading a sales team in the field, in a city like Atlanta, where traffic isn't just a nuisance, it's a daily certainty, how you use that time behind the windshield can define your team's success. The key lesson here is that driving is not an accomplishment. It's dead space, unless you make it productive. As a sales leader, it's your responsibility to help your reps turn that drive time into gold with the right territory planning, strategic in-person knocks, and what we call Automobile University. Whether it's a podcast, an audiobook, or a lesson on Sales Gravy University, if it's in their ears, it better be building their skills. And when reps learn to think like elite athletes, training constantly, thinking sharper, and asking better questions, they don't just pass the time in traffic, they gain a competitive edge. So the next time you're staring at the brake lights, don't waste the moment. Learn, plan, prep, and grow, because top performers know momentum doesn't stop when the wheels do. All right, let's take the next caller, and next up on the show is Ken.
We kind of lay out our process in that first meeting
Yeah.
to get them to agree, this is how this is going to go. After we've looked at, we're roofing, after we've looked at your roof, we're going to have a conversation on the phone and talk about what our next
Yes.
steps are. And then eventually we'll float a trial balloon to get some agreement on this is what we
Yeah.
think we're going to propose to you. Is this going to work for you? And more touches, more buy-in,
Yes.
and then at the end we show them the proposal, and hopefully they've spent more time with us than any of our competitors, and they're willing to work with us.
Yes,
So I like
brilliant.
that.
It's brilliant. That's for me. That's what I try to do when I get into a deal, is to break it down to see how many steps can I get them to walk through reasonably without overextending the sales process, so that I get more touches than my competitor. And what you just described is absolutely freaking brilliant. It totally works, and you're getting people to buy in. And I love the fact that you do the sort of the check step or the collaborative step that says, here's what we're thinking we're going to propose. Do you agree with that? Like, you're collecting that yes along the way. That's what I mean by the investment effect. Like, every time you do that, they get more invested in you, and it's harder for them to turn back.
I'm going to wrap this up in a moment with some final thoughts. But first, if you have a question for the show, head over to salesgravy.com/ask. That's salesgravy.com/ask. One of our producers will reach out to you and get you scheduled to join Jeb on a future episode. What Ken reminded us of today is that sales isn't just about getting to yes. It's about earning a series of micro agreements that keep your deal moving forward. When you break the sales process into clear, collaborative steps, you're not just guiding the buyer, you're creating buy-in. Every touch point is a chance to increase commitment, build trust, and separate yourself from competition. That's what we call the investment effect. The more time and energy your prospect invests in you, the harder it is for them to walk away. So the takeaway is simple. Map out your process, involve the customer early, and use interaction to lock in small yeses, because the reps who win big are the ones who stay intentional from the first call to the final handshake. And when you're staring down your final call block, tired, frustrated, and ready to call it a day, remember this: push through the resistance, hold the line, and make one more call. This is Jeb Blount Jr., and I'll catch you next time on the Sales Gravy Podcast.
Hey, I'm doing a happy dance because you watched this video. Make sure that you click like and subscribe so that you never miss one of our amazing sales training videos.